like you asked, is going to be a bit objective and it's going to be a bit subjective. So the public will have to decide where they will align with as far as this case is concerned. I think it's an issue that shouldn't have even arisen in the first place if the institution that NEMA is had managed its affairs very well. It shouldn't have even generated to the extent that the House Committee on NEMA will have to check into the books and activities of the National Emergency Management Agency as far as the Northeast is concerned and the IDPs, the internally displaced persons, which, as a result of Boko Haram insurgency that has lasted in that region for like a couple of years now, I think, starting from 2009. NEMA, as the name implies, National Emergency Acts to respond to people in crisis areas in terms of during emergency period. I think what the House of Reps committee did was to check what NEMA did based on the allegations or reports or complaints from some IDPs that they were certainly some stuff that were meant to be given to them, especially rice, and that the thing was not given to them. Some people, took it off, and those things were not delivered to them. And I think the report came out and a bit mentioned the VP, who was the acting president then, because the president was away in the UK. And he needed to append the signature to that particular, that made the possibility of the release of funds for that thing. I think by giving his approval to that particular emergency relief as the acting president, then he acted in the best interest of those people to me because they needed the relief badly as at that time. I think the only thing that I will quarrel with or I have my issue with is the way NEMA itself as an institution managed the distribution. There's this regionalization that some of those things were diverted. Probably you need people who are vulnerable at the mercy of the public, the government, and the rest, and you see them taking off a chunk of what they need. I think the control, the presidential control of NEMA is domiciled within the office of the VP, the Vice President. Perhaps maybe later they need to exercise more discretion about monitoring how NEMA operates so that allegations of this nature will not come. I think when you go through the Public Procurement Act, certain section there that makes provision for granting approval in a case of emergency before a recourse to the Public Procurement Act for necessary validation and documentation and all that. So I think overall it's the opposition that is trying to take some political capital out of it, because if you have read the report of the House of Reps, you will see that there was no particular mentioning of the VP, who was the acting president then. I listened to the chairman of that committee, and there was this thing he said. He was specifically asked, I think by Sheun Okinbaloye of Channels, Politics Today, and he was asking him, the report actually indicts the VP, and he said no. He was so, direct and blunt with it. But in any case, he said the VP was the one in charge as at that time when the approval was given. So the whole kind of blame goes back to him. But of course, he gave the approval in the interest of about 1.8 million Nigerians who needed the relief at that time. But I think in the long run, they need to check how NEMA operates. More transparency and accountability should be demanded from the leadership. And even if the need be, the DG of NEMA should be highly sanctioned for that, this thing on his part, because there is no way you want to extricate what NEMA stands for without linking him to the VP, because the control of NEMA as an institution is still within the office of the VP. But as far as giving that approval was concerned at that particular time, it was a case of procurement, it was a case of emergency. The VP acted within the ambit of the law. And of course, as a professor of constitutional law, I don't think he would have deliberately, violated a section of the Constitution. So, to me, honestly,
it may be subjective, but I don't see any issue. They are just trying to link the VP to it in order to discredit him because all weapon or all is fair. Wartime and politics is war by another means. So all is fair. You are throwing more, others are throwing more, and all that. So if it gets to you, but of course, you know, a lot of Nigerians still like have some atom of confidence in the VP that is above board. Personally, if you ask me, I seem to have a kind of soft spot. If I'm going to vote the APC, assuming I'm going to vote them and I see them as a better alternative, I'm going to be voting them on the basis of probably because of the VP, because of the aura, the charisma around him and all that. So he too knows that this is a slippery terrain, so he tries to be as careful as he can, but then you can't know it all. You can't be everywhere 360 degrees and all that. But where there are certain lapses, I think what they should do, if I were to, you know, advise the presidency is to properly sanction those who got themselves involved in that mess caused by NEMA, especially when that diversion of a thing. But that approval, giving presidential approval to the fund and all that, I think he did act within the ambit of the law. So it's a non-issue to me, but of course the opposition is going to make some meat out of it to sell to the electorate that, oh, the VP is as guilty as every other person and all that. You know, the VP has been the kind of vocal, he's been critical of the last administration. He keeps telling us that, see what happened, they took this chunk of money from the Commonwealth, from our revenue bills, without provisions, without regard to the law. If you look at a section of what is happening, they will say, if this VP could accuse the past administration of taking money without recourse to the law, giving approval for monies released without, you know, adhering to provisions, certain provisions of the law, why should they be doing that now? But if you check critically, you will discover that he did actually act within the ambit of the law as at that time. So to me, if like you did ask for my opinion, this is my opinion, and every other person can have his or her own interpretation of that. As far as no law is broken, the VP acted well. But of course, going forward for future whatever, they need to, you know, the control of NEMA, presidential control should be tighter and a bit firmer this time around, so that people will always take advantage if they are not controlled. When you give certain responsibility to certain persons and you don't control them the way they should be controlled, they are going to take advantage because it's so bad that the IDPs, the people who actually need these emergency reliefs, some people are making money from them. It's terrible and it's sad. Nobody will want to hear that. So that's as far as my opinion about that issue is concerned. It's no fiasco, but you know, it's election time, so everything goes.